Good morning, everybody. Welcome. All right. Welcome to Sloth Mode Restorative. Today we're going to get a little bit of movement going before we come into our more yin and restorative style practice. So if you have any props for the latter part of our practice today, bolsters are great. Blankets, if you don't have bolsters, 2 or 3 blankets folded up on top of one another work really nice as a substitute. And a couple of yoga blocks. If you don't have these props, please don't worry about it. Just grab a couple blankets and keep them near your mat. Towards the end of our practice, we will be using a little bit of support. But let's go ahead and get started. So somatic movement is oftentimes used for helping to heal or work through past traumas, PTSD, and the movement can sometimes trigger emotions. The idea is to just kind of pay attention to the physical sensations within the body as we begin to find this movement. We're all kind of practicing from home, so it's a little bit more comfortable for some of us. Some of us are kind of down to cry in public, but crying and making noises or feeling through stuff is a little bit easier when we're doing it solo. So I just want to encourage you guys to explore your feelings, your sensations, to make little tweaks to the movement if something doesn't feel right. And just listen to your body, listen to your spirit, listen to your heart, and listen to your mind. Sometimes that mind chatter will get going, and I'll encourage you through that. If you find that your mind's kind of going off and you've got all these different things going on in your head, to just bring your presence, bring your awareness back to breath. You can kind of chill on focusing on the movement if that's what's distracting you from the breath or bringing up too much thought. So with all of that being said, just listen to your body, ultimately. We're going to come to a nice, easy seated position to begin. Placing those hands over the knees. We're just going to take a few breaths, eyes closed if the eyes are feeling restful enough. If the eyes are really active, just find your gaze over a drishti, just a point out in front of you, and start to get with that breath, softening the forehead, the jaw. If you're feeling a lot of anxious tension this morning, you can kind of shake out the hands or roll through the neck, or just find a little movement in those shoulders and then settle on down. And we're just starting with our normal breath, noticing what that natural rhythm is like. Take note, are you a natural belly breather, or do you tend to take more shallow breaths? And over the next few inhales, we're going to let the belly billow out as we breathe in. And as we exhale, feeling that belly button just naturally draw back towards the front of the spine. As we continue to cultivate the breath here, you may begin to sort of naturally practice the Ujjayi breath. If not, the Ujjayi breath is just a normal belly breath in. So we're letting that belly sort of puff out as we breathe in, using the diaphragm to draw the breath in or create space for breath. And then as you exhale, it's a slow, steady, streaming exhale out with a slight narrowing at the back of the throat to create that little hissing sound. And do what feels good. So some people will practice this kind of breath and kind of combine it with other pranayama and just take like a big breath in, which that's a completely different practice all in and of itself. But feel free to kind of mix and match. If you're finding that your body's natural rhythm of breathing is getting into a little bit more of a forceful breath in and a forceful breath out, as long as that feels like it's doing something beneficial for you, keep going with it. take another 5 breaths here. Don't worry about counting. Just notice the quality of thought. Notice any physical sensations coming up in the body. And you're more than welcome to notice any of the thoughts that are passing through the mind. If you notice they're pulling you away or pushing you into any specific state of mind, just try to come back to your breath and continue to observe this. Few breaths, just imagine all the tension melting away from the body on the exhales. If the mind is still feeling a bit scattered as we continue to move through this practice, here and there, just sprinkle in that quiet voice inside saying, as you're breathing in, I'm breathing in. As you're breathing out, I'm breathing out. Or as simple as in on the in-breath and out on the out-breath. With your next couple of breaths, we're going to open the eyes if they're closed. We'll begin to find a little bit of movement here. So on an inhale, opening up the chest, you can let those elbows draw out wide or keep the elbows alongside the rib cage. Just allow those shoulders to trail down the back. Keep the neck in line with the rest of the spine, and maybe just draw the chin up a little bit, finding where that feels okay in the neck. And on an exhale, we'll go ahead and bring those hands down to the mat. You can keep the arms extended here. Palms are grounded down, fingers are reaching out wide, all 10 fingers. And of course, if this is a little too much to fold so much over the hips, you can walk those hands back. We want a straight spine here. We're just going to take a few breaths with evenness in the front and back, left and right sides of the body. And feel those palms rooting down. That's the idea here. I want you to feel grounded. And when we really widen all 10 fingers, we're able to truly feel the space beneath the hands. Feel how the fingertips and the mounds of the fingertips are rooting down. The heels of the hands are rooting down. And the palms are lifting gently up. Just that center of the palm is lifting up. These are the bandhas. And feel how, if you lean your weight into those hands, how the shoulders sort of naturally draw back. They retract towards one another. And from here, we can really float the heart up on the next inhale. Feel free to kind of rock gently side to side if this helps you to elongate the side body. We want to keep those sit bones grounded here. So if you're feeling pretty tight in the hips or the low back, you can bring that blanket underneath the sit bones. And again, I did offer bringing the hands further back, but if you need a little more support here, you could bring those hands onto blocks, lifting this up a little bit. But we do want to feel some opening in the hips here as we fold over, just to offer some modifications if you need it. So with the next couple of breaths, we're just going to kind of bounce. And this is where the somatic movement comes in. We're just going to bounce ever so slightly, dropping some of that weight into the hands. Maybe the elbows bend a tiny bit. We're just kind of rocking ourselves, bouncing the heart forward and back. Take a big breath in here. And as you exhale, walk the hands further forward and just dangle the spine over the legs. Elbows underneath the shoulders here. Of course, if you still need that support, a couple blankets underneath the forearms or grab your bolster. If you'd like, you can extend those arms even further and let the upper spine hang over the legs. If that's too deep, just ease it back or bring some support underneath the torso, the head. Let's take a good 5 belly breaths here. So really allowing that breath to billow into the low belly, into the hip bowl. Every exhale, we're surrendering, just letting go of tension in the body. The inhales inviting us deeper into noticing and really feeling sensation, being present with what it feels like to be inside this body. With your next few breaths, we're going to start to float the head up. On an exhale, walking those hands back towards you, floating right back up to a seated position. Just take a couple of breaths here, staying present. Checking in with self, noticing any sensations, emotions, anything that comes up. Sometimes life can feel really big and heavy, like we're drowning in it or just bombarded by so much. And it can be difficult to kind of make sense of it all. And in those moments, it can be really, really helpful to have a mindfulness practice, to have a meditation practice, to bring ourselves back in line, to bring ourselves back to a place where we can kind of function through the challenges of life. So in those moments, a good simple practice is just as I'm breathing in, I'm saying the mantra in my mind, either in or I am breathing in. And as you breathe out, saying the mantra, I am breathing out or out, whichever is easiest for you to remember. We can also, in a moment, just take a look around and realize that in this present moment, though we might be fearful of something in the future or we may be working through something from the past, in that present moment, we can look around and realize that we are at least in a safe enough place to be able to practice our yoga and meditation or to check on breath, that there's no imminent danger. And that can bring us back to a baseline where the nervous system is able to kind of get out of that fight or flight enough to start healing, enough to start feeling okay, right? If that's the best place to start, is as long as you're all right, right? So let's just get with breath here and just see how that in and out mantra works for you. You don't have to say it out loud, just breathe in and thinking in, breathing out, thinking out. And recognize that the space we're in right now, though things may not ever be perfect, that right in this moment we are okay. And on an inhale, we're going to reach the arms overhead. But as you're reaching those arms overhead, draw those fingertips, the backs of the fingertips, back towards the top of the forearm. So flexion in the wrist. We're going to draw the inner wrists towards one another. Reaching those arms so that the wrists, elbows, shoulders stack up. Drop your shoulders down and then just press up into the hands. Imagine that you're just holding a big giant ball of glowing light. Let's take a few big breaths here. We're going to take a nice forceful breath in using the diaphragm. So, and as you exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. One more, inhale, exhale, and bring those palms to the mat. Really pressing down, widening through all 10 fingers. We're going to bend those elbows in towards the shins, keeping the elbows parallel. And just roll onto the knees. If that's tough for you, totally fine. You can make your way any old-fashioned way that feels good, coming off to the side, one hip, and just make your way onto hands and knees. Wrists, elbows, shoulders stack up. If you've got longer arms, you may want to bring those arms a little further forward. Same goes for the thighs. So knees under the hips, but if you've got longer thigh bones, you might want to bring those knees back. So just a general rule is wrist, elbows, shoulders for your tabletop, hips and knees, but adjust as needed and just be present with your body. Give yourself permission to intuitively feel what's okay for you. As you exhale, we'll just gently draw the belly button in towards the front of the spine and think about reaching those sit bones straight back behind you, reaching the crown of your head straight forward in front of you, keeping some neutrality in the neck and the spine. And as you take these next few breaths, we're going to find a little bit of movement in the hips, just gently wagging our tail. Left hip draws towards left ear. You could press that right rib cage off to the right to bring this a little bit deeper. And just take a few big Buddha belly breaths into that belly, into the side body. Feel those intercostal muscles, the rib muscles open up a little bit on the inhale. And then we'll exhale to the other side. This sort of becomes like a snake or a serpent, right? Just rocking it side to side. After a while, if you're noticing that your body's sort of craving to move a little bit faster, feel free. But take your time to just sit on either side for a few breaths and feel what the body is asking for. If you're feeling a little wobbly this morning and being on hands and knees just doesn't feel stable enough for you, tuck your toes. This will help. And on your next couple of exhales, we're just going to stack a little bit more movement into this. So in your tabletop, we're going to keep going right ear to right hip, left ear to left hip. But we're going to add a little bit of cat-cows into this. So for some people, it's easier to add the right and left to the cat-cows, which I'll show that in a second. But let's go from right ear to right hip. Tuck the tailbone under, draw the chin towards the pubic bone, and then as you inhale, left ear to left hip, we're arching the spine through our cow. And feel free to get a little bit more motion in here. So if you're, a real movie person or you feel really fluid in the body this morning, then just kind of let that motion rock the weight from hands to knees. Feel how the breath sort of helps to massage the internal organs, the spine, all of the muscles supporting the spine. Getting a little bit of oil for the joints. On an exhale, we'll switch and start moving the other direction. And just feel through your body, feel through your breath. Move as slow as you want and as consciously, quickly as you'd like. So if we're moving fast, we're not just yanking the body to and fro. We're going to intentionally move with a swiftness. with your next couple of breaths, we're going to find that tabletop again. So make sure you've got those knees under your hips. Come into the tabletop. We're going to tuck those toes and bring the sit bones back towards the heels, just getting a good stretch through the soles of the feet. If you'd like, you can let the belly rest over top thighs and just dangle here. Maybe the forehead comes to the floor. Maybe that's too deep and you'd like to have a little support underneath the chest here. Totally fine. And with your next exhale, we are going to shift the weight forward into the forearms. So hopefully your knees are somewhere under your hips here, your elbows are under your shoulders here. You want to make sure those elbows aren't too far in, closing off the chest, or too far out, putting too much strain on the biceps or the pecs. So elbows under your shoulders here. And we're just going to start making a little figure 8 with the heart. So if this is your first time making figure 8s with the heart, sometimes this feels a little bit like you just don't know how to dance and you're trying to do the robot. After a while, it becomes much more fluid. You start to feel, oh, this is nice, right? And your body just kind of takes over. And what's really happening, right, is we're making synaptic connections. We're kind of bringing more, I like to think of it as more electrical outlets into the muscles, into the tendons, into the ligaments, so that our brain is more aware of those parts of the body and is more able to make them move. We're more connected to our movement. So just making those 8s with the heart and switching directions. So this part is where it might feel even more like you can't dance and you're doing the robot. And that's all right. I was just saying the other day, if you're not feeling like you don't know how to do something, then you're stagnant. You're not doing anything new. And we're staying with the breath. And as you exhale, we're going to press away into those hands. Let the heart melt into the floor for Anahatasana, arms overhead. If the shoulders are bothering you, sometimes it's helpful to spin the palms facing up, bringing those pinky fingers in towards the midline, or even bending those elbows out to the sides. So just play with it, find what works best for you. It can be different every day. Your chin can be on the mat if that's comfortable. If not, take an ear to the mat for 3 breaths and switch over on an exhale for 3 breaths on the other side. And here we're going to take a couple of breaths before we move out of Anahatasana. And we're going to do the end of cry breath, or what I call the end of cry breath. Short staccato breaths in using the diaphragm like this. And we're breathing in until the lungs are full. Once the lungs are full, take that slow, steady breath out with the Ujjayi breath. And one more breath. On your next exhale, we'll come back to our normal breathing. Gonna rock that weight into the forearms. Bring the hands back to where the elbows were, and you'll find yourself right back in your tabletop pose. So we're gonna tuck the toes here. Fair warning, this one might be tough if you have knee issues, low back issues, or hip issues. It can also be really beneficial for the hips and low back. So take it easy as we come into this. Get your props near. We're going to walk the hands back towards the knees, tuck the toes, and roll back onto the soles of the feet, bringing ourselves right into a deep yogic squat, malasana, garland pose, right? When we wrap those arms around. So lifting up through the heart, take a big breath. As you exhale, just feel those shoulder blades. If these were your shoulder blades, they're drawing in towards the thumb, drawing in towards one another, dropping down away from your ears. Let's take a couple big breaths here. And on inhale, we're going to reach the arms overhead. As you exhale, we're going to make fists with the hands and draw the elbows down in towards the fronts of the ribs, okay? 3 times. Next, inhale, reach those arms overhead. As you exhale, bring the hands to the mat and straighten out those legs, coming into a forward fold. So in your forward fold, adjust my articles of clothing here, getting a little warm, so I'll take this sweatshirts. I have 3 sweatshirts on today. 2 of them are gone. All right. So here you are in your forward fold. Heels are underneath, or actually no, the feet were wide because we came from our squat. So feet are just a little wider than the hips. We're gonna just take a few breaths here as you inhale. And if those hands, real quick, if those hands don't reach the floor, please fear not. You can bring those hands to blocks. If you have a chair, you can use a chair. If you have a countertop, you can use a countertop. If you're really tight, you can use a wall. This can be your forward fold. So don't ever feel like I can't do yoga because my body is tight. We all get tight bodies. The more we move our bodies, the more we stretch, the more we open things up, the looser that they get, the more comfortable we can feel. Unless, of course, we need more stability. I'm one of those, I'm flexible, but I need more stability, more strength in my practice. Anyhow, so the weight's gonna drop forward to the balls of the feet. Most of us tend to kind of drop the weight into the heels because it's easier, we can hang on those joints, but we tend to hyperextend in the hamstrings. So bring your weight forward into the balls of the feet. If it feels like you're gonna fall, maybe bring some blocks into it. Just peel those heels gently off the floor. The body begins to feel like a waterfall. Okay, from the hips down, we start to flow forward. And over these next few breaths, we're going to inhale to a nice long spine and exhale to dangle, just 3 times. And let your breath get ugly, right? So as you exhale, whatever noise comes out of you, all of the breath leaves, we're dangling the spine. We're going to bend those knees, enough for the belly to rest over the top thighs. So you're just dangling over the thighs here. As you inhale, lengthen your spine forward. Bring the hands to the shins. Press away into those shins and feel how you can really lengthen the heart forward. Keep the shoulders away from the ears. Crown of head reaches away from the sit bones. Let's take a couple breaths here. Big fat Buddha belly breaths, feeling the length of the front body. And on the exhale, everything just lets go. Backs of the hands alongside the feet here, or you can bring the palms underneath the feet. So the mound of the big toe pressing into the heel of the hand. Really just like a waterfall, surrendering to gravity. On an inhale, we're going to lengthen that spine forward again. Bring the hands to the shins, and just below the knees is fine. Weight still in the balls of the feet, and draw those shoulders away from the ears. Let the neck get nice and long here, reaching the crown of head away from the sit bones. As you exhale, dangling the spine over the legs again, backs of the hands alongside the feet, just letting everything go. Let's bend those knees a little bit more. So over these next couple of breaths, we're just going to let the spine lengthen on the inhale on its own, and then exhale to dangle. Always reminds me of those little party favors. So as you're inhaling, you're blowing the little party favor out. As you exhale, it's kind of recurling. And we'll take one more inhale. Walk those hands underneath the shoulders. Lengthen the legs. I'm going to walk the hands forward towards the top of the mat and bring the feet back a little bit, coming into a nice little downward facing dog. I will say this at every class that I ever teach, just in case there's one new student or newer student who just hasn't found their groove yet with each posture. You don't have to have your heels on the floor in downward facing dog. You don't have to have the legs straight in downward facing dog. This can be your downward dog. We're really looking to press away into the hands. Feel those shoulders glide down the back, and feel the spine moving up into the hips. Feel the hips gently releasing away from the legs, just lifting up through those sit bones. And on an exhale, we're going to step the right foot forward, turn all 10 toes halfway to the left. I'm going to take a breath in here, lengthening up through the crown of the head, lengthening up through your sit bones, pressing into the outer edges of the feet, but also pressing into the inner ball of the foot. So finding evenness through the foot, lifting up through the arches. And as you exhale, just dangle the spine. So we're kind of going to do the same thing that we did with the legs closer together. Inhaling up, exhaling to dangle like a waterfall. Again, this can be with your own natural rhythm of breath, or if you'd like, you can just a few times and then moving with the natural breath. I'll leave that choice up to you. So next exhale, as you dangle the spine, I'm going to turn sideways to show better, and I'm going to take these funky socks off. They're kind of falling off my feet anyways. All right. So with those feet wide, here we are in our forward fold. We're going to extend for a moment and then exhale to dangle. If you need to, you could bring the feet a little closer together or further apart. Find your groove with this. And we're just going to grab a hold of opposite elbows. You want to make sure there's enough space here to where the elbows can dangle freely. We don't have them on the ground. We're not getting ready to get upside down here. We're just dangling the spine. So if you need to, you can always bring those feet a little closer together. If you're feeling a lot of tension in the backs of the legs, bend the knees. In fact, why don't we all bend the knees just for safety's sake? And it feels really good here. So dangling the spine with those hands on the elbows, knees gently bent, just kind of letting the weight of your bottom drop back a little bit behind you. And then over the next few breaths, we're just going to kind of rock the body from side to side. So you're bringing the right ribs towards right thigh, left ribs towards left thigh, and really kind of just swinging around, breathing freely. And again, I really encourage you guys to make noises. Like, this is the perfect time to be weird. We're all home. We can test it out without feeling like we're being judged. And, make noises. So, big breath in. And as you exhale, whatever sounds come out of you, it's most likely the most authentic thing, right? And on an exhale, we're going to switch the cross of the arms. So one arm was, over the top of the other. We're going to switch to the other side. Just keep rocking here gently, side to side. With your next exhale, wrong clothes for today. With your next exhale, we're going to press into those hands. Lift the heart forward on the inhale. And again, really rooting down through those hands. One way that I like to kind of teach really feeling the rooted feeling of our hands is pressing the heel of the hand into the mat and then gently and slowly and consciously widening all fingers, and then slowly just kind of opposite of peeling, dropping the hand down and allowing it to feel the contact a little bit at a time. So really get rooted through those palms, lifting the heart forward. As you exhale, we're just going to heel toe those feet to about the width of the mat and turn the toes out a little bit. Bend the knees, squat those thighs parallel to the mat, and just kind of bounce the hips a couple of times here. Take a big breath in. And if you want, you can kind of think like you're a gorilla and like swing your torso side to side, or maybe even beat on the floor a little bit. Think like shamanic drumming kind of a deal. And as you exhale, turn the toes in, dangle the spine again. As you inhale, lengthen the spine forward. We're going to get those feet right back underneath the sit bones. As you exhale, dangle that spine one more time, bend the knees. And roll on up, one vertebrae at a time. Tucking the tailbone on your way. Once you come to standing, opening up the heart, we're going to spin the palms to face forward. Let's just take a little bit of a spinal extension here. We've done a lot of forward folding this morning. So reaching those arms up, palms face one another, and even spin the pinky fingers towards one another so that you really open up the shoulders. And as you exhale, scoop the tailbone under, press pubic bone forward, belly button draws in, big breath in, lifting up through the heart. And as you exhale, we're going to come all the way down into our cosmic egg. So we're just going to wrap those arms around the knees or shins and drop the booty down towards the heels. Once you're here, tuck your chin in towards your heart and just give yourself a big hug. Next exhale, we're going to start to bring it on down. So lower down to the bottom. You can reach those arms out in front of you and just drop your booty to the floor. Cross, let's go ahead and cross right shin over left. Excuse me. All right. So right shin's over left, just in a nice, easy seated position, crisscross applesauce like you were in kindergarten. And we're going to start to get into a little bit more movement before we come into the more yin and restorative portion of our practice today. So you're going to lean over like we did when we first started, and you can kind of slither like a snake if you'd like, just finding that fluid movement, connecting with how it feels, connecting with your breath as you move. We have this sacred force within us, right? This life, this blood that just pumps through our veins and into our heart, and the lungs oxygenate the blood and keep us, our muscles, supple and alive, and keep us walking around, talking, resilient. So sort of celebrating that, allowing memories, allowing pain, allowing fear, allowing everything to be here in your human experience right here and now. Getting with the breath if it feels too scary, reminding yourself that you're okay right here and right now. And on an exhale, we're going to just get still, Plant those hands out in front of you, nice long arms. And we're just going to inhale, arms off to the left, exhale to the right. Inhale, left arm to the right, exhale to the left. So don't worry too much about where the hands are placed. I just want you to feel through this. Inhaling up and exhaling across, inhaling up and exhaling across. And go as slow as you'd like, or as fast as you'd like. One more. And bring both hands out in front of you. Dangle the spine. On an inhale, lengthen the heart forward. Extend through arms. Exhale to walk those hands back towards the shins. We might feel a little bit warmer now after all of that little movement. Just give yourself a few breaths here. We're going to make our way back to reclined. I really want you to connect with your breath and whatever sensations you're feeling right here and right now before we do come back onto the spine. Please feel free to make as much noise as you'd like through the practice. Before we come back to reclining, we're going to do a little bit of tapping. So this practice is supposed to help with the nervous system. I don't really exactly know all the science behind it, but I've felt the effects. So we're going to go ahead and just do a little bit here. You're going to take your pointer and middle finger of your dominant hand, left or right, doesn't matter, and just tap right at the center of your forehead. I told you, lots of strange stuff today, guys. But this tapping, just stay with your breath as you're tapping on the forehead. I don't know, we'll go about 20, 25 times. And then we're going to move it down to just below the nose. Tapping here. Soften your face. We're not doing it really hard. I don't want you to hurt yourself or walk away all red and bruised. Just tapping gently to where it's a firm tap, but not a hard tap, right? And then we'll move down to just below the lower lip, right above your chin. There's that little, not really a dimple, unless you have a chin dimple. But yes, the space just beneath your lower lip. Next exhale, we are going to take pointer and middle finger on both hands, or peace fingers on both hands, and just at the sinuses alongside your nose. So here's the bridge of the nose, and you'll kind of slide down and find that point, right? A nice gentle pressure here, and tap. Eyes can be closed. Taking big breaths as we're moving through this practice. And exhale to release. Just feel the effects. Your next few breaths, we're going to go ahead and just kind of rub the face a few times. Maybe massaging the eyes, maybe squeezing, whatever works for you, whatever feels best. And on an exhale, we're going to go ahead and make our way back to the spine. So take your time coming back. Place those hands back behind you. If you've got the blankets and the bolster nearby, bring the blankets and the bolster nearby, even the blocks. If you've got your yoga blocks with you today, bring all the props within reach. I'm just going to keep mine here so I can show. Our final resting pose, I'm going to give you guys an option today. We're not quite there yet. I want to do a little bit of hip opening before we come to the end of our practice today. So coming back onto the spine, keep those feet flat on the floor. We're going to reset the hips, pressing into those feet, just giving a little pelvic tilt, lifting the hips up off of the floor. Sorry, tucking the tailbone under, not really a pelvic tilt. And then as you exhale, you'll walk the shoulders away from the ears, make any adjustments that you need to the clothing. And take a couple of breaths with the hands on the belly here. Both hands on your belly. Just feeling the rise and fall of your belly. Knowing that there's a sacred force of life living within you. Soften your eyes back. Take a couple big Buddha belly breaths in here. So as you're feeling the rise and fall of belly with breath, I just want you to imagine yourself like a baby. And that love that we feel for helpless creatures, animals, babies, children. Well, we're the same. I wouldn't say necessarily any creature's helpless, but we all have that helplessness in us, right? Sometimes we need a little help from our friends. So just feeling this belly rise and fall. Imagine a baby sleeping. And watching how the chest and the belly rise and fall. And every so often the breath quivers. And maybe the baby falls deeper into slumber. And let's take a moment to recognize that sacred force that lives within us and a baby. And we were babies once. Each stage of life, we're sort of babies still, always learning new things, always going through growing pains. And with your next few breaths, we're just going to let those arms drop out. So the hands will float away from the belly. Palms face up. We're going to extend that left leg down the length of the mat. Hug the right knee into the chest. You don't have to grab a hold of it. We're going to keep those arms out wide. And on an exhale, just roll to the outside of left knee. You can have some props here. We're not going to stay here very long. Just take a couple breaths and then exhale to the other side. So you'll straighten out the right leg once you roll back onto the spine and roll off to the right hip, bringing the left knee over to the right. And take a couple breaths here. And exhale to switch sides. And exhale to switch sides. Now if you're experiencing some, issues with range of motion in the lower back. Again, you can bring a block over here and just kind of modify, do this a little bit less, not so deep, not rolling all the way to the side, but maybe just coming here and taking a little bit of pressure to that outer knee, and then exhaling to the other side. And again, maybe that leg's just floating up and you're supporting it. We're using a block underneath to support the knee. And exhale back to center. Release those feet flat onto the floor. We're going to hug the knees in. You can cross right ankle over left and just hug those feet in towards the legs. And switching sides on exhale, same. And with your next couple of breaths before we come into Shavasana, let's take a little sleeping swan or pigeon pose. So a couple ways you can come into this, just depends on how you're feeling this morning. You can come from your tabletop, extend the left leg, and bring that right knee in towards the chest. Or if you're looking to come from a downward dog, you can inhale the right leg up, maybe even open up the right hip, find some space, and then exhale that right knee in towards the nose or in between the hands. So here, finding our pigeon pose, we're just going to press into those fingertips. If you'd like, you can ground down through the palms even, and just lift up. Walk the hands back, lift up. And you'll find that space where your body says, okay, that's enough, let's stop here. Listen to your body, honor your body. And then you'll take a few breaths there. And on an exhale, we'll lower it down. Sleeping swan. We can bring those hands together in Anjali Mudra, and thumbs will rest right at the third eye. Just let the weight of your head drop. Be mindful of the shoulders here. Sometimes we tend to shrug those shoulders. Again, just let the shoulders glide down the back, releasing the weight of the head. We're going to take a few big old Buddha belly breaths here, releasing tension in the hips. We store a lot of trauma in our hips, so this is an important space to take care of every day. And on an exhale, let's plant those hands at the top of the mat. Tuck the back toes and walk the back knee forward, just once or twice. You're going to bring your right leg back, extending the right leg, pressing the ball of the foot into the floor, and just kind of rocking your weight forward and back a few times. So, I've mentioned trauma a few times today. I think mainly because I chose to do a somatic practice this morning. You can come into tabletop and just rock those hips side to side for a few breaths. And I just wanted to say trauma is really relative, right? So some people have had lots of crazy trauma that just isn't the average trauma. And you might look at that person and be like, how are you even here? But it's relative. The traumas that we experience, and then we kind of grow to believe that these things are norm. It's a part of our conditioning. And, if you are someone who hasn't experienced, or you think you haven't experienced trauma, we all have. Breakups are trauma, a form of trauma. Parents getting divorced is a form of trauma. Feeling, if you were ever bullied, if you had an illness, if you have a debilitating disorder, these are all forms of trauma. Yes, we can rise above our trauma. Yes, we can grow. Yes, our trauma can be a huge factor in how we evolve into the amazing human beings that we become. But it is really a choice of, am I going to take this and let it grow me? Or am I going to take this and just wallow in it for a long time? And sometimes the wallowing has to happen for a little while, right? But when we come into this somatic or yoga practice where we can really allow the body to help heal and allow the mind to help heal the body, it's important to stay present and feel and get with your breath. All right, on an exhale, however you came into the pigeon last time, let's do the same here. So whether that was coming into tabletop, extending, and then bringing that left knee in, bringing the toes back, or maybe it was downward dog. And you inhaled that left leg back, opened up the left hip on the exhale, and then brought left knee in for your pigeon. So again, we're going to press into those fingertips or palms, whichever works better for you. If you're feeling any pain on the back knee, I didn't mention this last slide. So I experienced that for a long time in the beginning of my practice, was pain in the back knee. And I found that tucking the toes really helped, or having a blanket underneath the quadricep, just above the knee, was really helpful. So if you need to bring a blanket into the mix, go for it. You can also bring blocks underneath the bottom here to help support and not get too deep. We're going to take a couple breaths here, and as you inhale, you're going to find a little more length in the spine. Exhale to walk the hands a little closer to the shins. And you're going to give yourself 2 to 3 breaths here, just being with what is, right? If things are crappy, and you can be okay when things are crappy. If things are great, you can be okay when things are great. Just get with your breath, be with the body, feel, maybe even not understanding what's happening in the body, but you feel it. Breathe into that. And on an exhale, lower it down to forearms. We'll bring those hands to prayer position, and thumbs will rest at the forehead. And we're not tucking at the hairline. We're not tucking right in between the brows at the bridge of the nose. Just above that. Above the brow bones at the center. Let those shoulders glide away from the ears. Let the weight of the head drop into the thumbs. Feel the breath washing into the body, like an ocean washes over the shore. And your breath is cleansing, washing away what ails you, helping you to surrender. Walk it on up, tuck the back toes, and just take a couple steps with that back knee, as many as you need to get there. Tuck the left toes way back behind you and press back into that left heel, press away into the hands. And a couple breaths here. On an exhale, release your left knee back to the mat. We're going to just come through a few more of those hip circles. So not so much on the cat-cow, just kind of rocking the weight forward into the hands, bringing the left sit bone towards right heel, right sit bone towards left heel, coming forward. Just little circles. And on an exhale, switching to the other side. next exhale, we'll go ahead and come back into hero's pose. Make our way off onto the spine. And your choice, it's very, very restful and supportive having a bolster underneath the knees for Shavasana. My goodness. I got this nice jute carpet or rug, and it's got little pieces just sticking to black. Nice. So you're gonna lower back onto the spine and readjust those hips. Make sure that you're not feeling any pinching in the low back. You can let those feet splay out wide to the bottom corners of the mat. Let the arms splay out wide alongside the hips, palms face up. And just take a few big Buddha belly breaths here. Every exhale, feeling the body sink back into the earth beneath you. You can also just come into traditional Shavasana without the bolster underneath you, or Supta Baddha Konasana is always another great choice. But if you're in this pose and you're feeling a lot of tension in the inner groin, maybe bring some blocks underneath it. We want to feel restful. We lay here, allowing the eyes to sink back into sockets. And allowing the jaw to lay lax. Allow the shoulders to release, back of the head. The neck, throat. And feel the right and left hands just sinking back into the floor. The weight of the arms following along. Allow the belly to soften. The heart to sink back in the chest cavity. Life is always happening all around us. There's never a perfect moment. Allow the sounds that you hear to just come and go as you bring your awareness to your breath. As you continue to observe and feel the sensations in your body. Every inhale, the breath draws in a bit deeper. Filling up all the way to the tips of your toes and into your fingertips. over your next few breaths, you'll begin to find just the slightest bit of movement in fingers and toes. Allow this movement to just trickle up to wrists and ankles. And at some point, we'll just float one knee up at a time, walking those feet closer to you. Make your way off to one side or the other. And give yourself a few breaths on the side here. Soften into this space. You're a beautiful human being simply for the fact that you have this sacred force within. We all have it. Take a few breaths here, just nourishing that little baby inside. Giving yourself compassion and giving others that same compassion. Giving my cat your compassion. And on an exhale, we'll just take our time, as much time as you need, to press on up to a seated position here. And when you find your way back to seated, however that's comfortable for you, just find your comfort zone. And we'll bring the back of one hand into the palm of the other. Just take a few moments. Every exhale, I'm letting go. Every inhale, I create space. It's another good mantra. Every inhale, I create space. Every exhale, I surrender. When you're ready, let's bring those hands to prayer position at the heart. And let's set just a little intention or a vibe or a feel for the day, whatever that is for you. I don't like to really fill in the blanks for others. As we enter into the last little phase of this year, lots of releasing, lots of receiving, right? We have to release in order to create that space to receive. And getting really clear with our intentions as the new year comes. It takes time to really sit and to be clear with those intentions to create exactly what it is you're looking to create in life. So with these next few breaths, you don't have to say a word, you don't have to have a mantra, they can be helpful. But maybe just sit with an energy, or sit with a vibe, or sit with the feeling that you have now, even if it has no label. Bring our hands together. Give yourself a few breaths, feeling those palms pressing against one another. When we say namaste, what it means is that space within me, that divine light within me, is honoring that divine light within you. Even if we have trauma, even if we have pain, even if we've made mistakes. And so we'll say together, namaste. Namaste, you guys. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and a great rest of the day.